I started my channel with the intent of clearing up a lot of misinformation that I commonly saw spread around Reddit, YouTube, in-game in general. And I feel like I've been doing a good job of that. And in this case, we have some pretty major news. Well, I actually didn't think it was that major, but Reddit takes this stuff so seriously. And like people, even in my RS discords, they're pretty peeved about this too. I won't say peeved, but like they're pretty passionate about discussing this stuff. And I've seen so much insane misinformation being spread in the comments of the Reddit post about this. It is insane to me how misinformed and how much bullshit is being spread in the community about this. And I'm taking this time to make another video in my series of Reddit Doesn't Understand to talk about third-party clients, because Reddit doesn't understand third-party clients. Let's take a look at some of the comments. I'm going to ignore this huge post because there's a lot of stuff on there. Why ban things you can't possibly detect? Because they're working on detecting it. Some of these could actually be detected. I think it's possible for a lot of these stuff, even overlays, to realistically be detected in the future if they change their systems to work on it. I don't know how they would do it because I don't work at Jagex, but it is possible. There's some... I think I read this too. This is one of the main ones. Menu entry swapper. Everyone read this menu entry swapper and they're being so pissed off about it for no reason. Sorry about that. Let me fix my screen. People are really pissed about menu entry swapper, but I don't really see a reason for it because I feel like people on our 2007scape just have poor reading comprehension or something, because you can clearly see on here the message about unofficial clients, there's a context associated with it, menu entry swapper for boss fights, not in general, for boss fights. And sure, there are some cases where it was extremely abusive, like construction, blackjacking, pickpocketing were the ones that they purposely picked out as examples because those were the plugins that people thought were really overpowered when they were added to RuneLight Plus or OS Buddy. So you have to notice though that in the category, this only applies to combat, and nothing like removing menu options for leprechauns or bankers, like people are talking about, is being taken out. Those are perfectly acceptable under Jax's new rules. So I think people are really blowing this out of proportion, saying that you can't use menu entry swapper for that. Some people are even going as far as to say that you can't use tile markers. Again, that's just the one where they're missing the context, because it's somewhere around here. It was something like, yeah, here we go. Where to stand, where not to stand. They took this to mean that you can't use tile markers, but tile markers are perfectly okay. What isn't okay, though, is the feature specifically where it was automated. I don't know how to describe this, but it was somewhere in this giant list where it indicates where you have to stand automatically, not like tile markers. Like, for example, if a monster is using a move, lizardmen shamans are the perfect example of this. It tells you where to stand to avoid the shaman attack and where the shaman attack is going, stuff like that. That stuff is absolutely not okay. And oh yeah, I found it. Here it is. Automatically informs you of where not to stand in a fight. That automatically part is the most important part. That's what separates tile markers from stuff like the Zelra plugin that they removed. And just as saying, Adam from RuneLight released a statement. They talked with JMods. It was I forgot which mod it was. Mod Bonsai they talked with to determine the plugins, which ones are balanced, which ones aren't balanced. And they've negotiated, and any plugin that's in RuneLight right now is completely safe to use. The JMods have given the green light to any plugin on RuneLight. And people are saying ridiculous stuff about how they're forcing us to use the vanilla client now, and how the game's gonna be unplayable because no one can use third-party clients. That's ridiculous. That is, I don't know how these comments are getting so highly upvoted, because one, they're wrong. Two, why would you want to hear that? Because usually I assume that on Reddit, if a wrong comment is highly upvoted, it's because it's what the people want to hear. And it's almost like people want to hear that Jagex is fucking them over because they want something to be mad about. But they're not. Jagex is reasonable. They're leaving so many plugins. Look at this. This is the changelog. These are the only plugins that are being taken out. Cerberus, Reorder Prayers, opponent's opponent part of the opponent info overlay. Remove the pickpocket talk to swap. Remove the minimap overlay. Remove the walk here attack swap overlay. Now, what do I have to say about this stuff? I do have some opinions on this myself. Remove the Cerberus plugin. I think that's good overall. I've read concerns that it fucks over colorblind players, but again, I think people are taking that way out of proportion because you can still look at the weapons of the ghosts, right? But, you know, if they really do think it's a problem, I wouldn't mind if they changed the colors or like added some other kind of indicator to differentiate the ghosts, because, you know, that's fine. You know, it makes people more play the game more. It makes the game more accessible. I'm all good with that. But the plugin, definitely that stuff was dumb. I think any kind of plugin that tells you what to pray is silly and shouldn't be in the game. Reorder prayers. Anyone who knows my videos have seen me use this plugin. I'll miss it, but you know, I actually disabled the plugin a long time ago because I was trying to get used to play on vanilla client in the worst case scenario. So it sucks, and that's how it is for a lot of these too. These suck, but you'll get used to it eventually. I don't PvP, but opponent's opponent sounds like the worst one of these to be removed, if I have to be honest. Because even though I don't PvP, with all the games I play, I feel like it's so important to know who someone's attacking. And like every MMO I've played shows this stuff. So like, why isn't this in OSRS? Are they planning to add it somehow to OSRS? I don't know what's going on with this one. I think if anything you can complain about out of all these changes, it's this one, okay? This one's actually really weird to me that they're taking out. Next one is a bit mixed. I know that it sucks that you can't one-click pickpocket ham and master farmers anymore, but they were never really intended that way. I think they can pull it to change it, like swap the options, and if they do that and it fails, then you know you can't really bitch about it anymore because the community doesn't want it. But if it passes, then like that's even better because now even mobile players will get the opportunity to one-click pickpocket those mobs. And it's not like you can't do one-click pickpocket now either, because you can still one-click pickpocket stuff like the Ardoin Knights, which don't have a talk option. So I'm not too sad about that. Like I see why they're taking it out. It makes sense. And it also opens up like the whole, like if they're trying to detect it, then you know, pickpocketing master farmers is pretty benign in one click if you were to use a menu entry swapper for that. But like if you're actually trying to detect it, how would you differentiate from people doing that shit and people doing like one-click blackjack, you know? Like maybe the system just picks up everything that's of that kind of plugin. So it makes sense why they're doing this. Remove the minimap overlay from the barrels plugin. Listen, barrels isn't hard content. No one really cares about barrels, but at the same time, the whole point of the barrels tunnels is that you can't see the minimap, and it's supposed to be like a fairly easy maze to solve. But the minimap overlay took out the entire maze aspect of the second part of the fight. So, you know, I think even though it's relatively benign, it is a pretty silly plugin to have in general. So it won't be missed. Walk here attack swap. That's just to be consistent with the stuff like you can't remove menu options or like swap menu options on monsters. So it's understand why to do that, because as places like Verzik, that matters a lot more, and they're just trying to be consistent. Now, I've had some other comments on here too. One of the basic ones, the most popular ones I've seen, is someone talking about like how we need plugins to play the game, how we like not having third-party clients will kill the game, you know? I don't know about that, because there are players who play on mobile only, you know? I know someone who's doing Inferno right now who's doing it on mobile only, and he's not having the greatest time, but at the same time, it's not like you're at that much of a disadvantage with all plugins. My general feeling about these third-party plugins is that people are just too reliant on them. They think they need them more than they actually do. I don't know, it's like they're using it as a crutch. It's making them worse players, and because they've been using it for so long, they think they need to use these plugins. And really, like Cerberus, come on, this shit is easy. You don't need a plugin for this. Accidentally attacking the Dark Core, how often does that happen? Once you stop using the plugins, you'll adjust very quickly, and that's how I am with the reorder prayers plugin. I use that plugin for the longest time to swap my prayers, but like now that I don't use it, you know, I'm used to the new way that I have to do it, like the original menu. And it's the same for all the other plugins. These people are like so overblowing the whole issue. And one more issue that I wanted to talk to is this one. He talks about deadly boss mods in WoW, and how like OSRS players should be allowed to use any kind of plugins they want, but then the JMods design bosses around the fact that people have access to this plugin. Now, let's go over why I think that's a bad idea. I understand where they're coming from because a lot of other MMOs do this. Well, I actually don't know if a lot of other MMOs do this because Final Fantasy XIV was the other MMO I played for a long time, and they were really strict on plugins too. I think it's only WoW that I've played that actually lets you use third-party plugins like that. But let's talk about why that's not a good idea in RuneScape. Because first of all, not just in RuneScape, but like in any game, I don't like the idea that you have to like be researching, hey, what mods should I be using to do so and so boss? Like it just seems kind of silly. And like say RuneLite doesn't have this stuff, right? They don't have the overlay plugins. You have to like figure out a client that does. You have to like switch between clients that do have these plugins. And I'll have to admit, it was something that I used to do back in the day because Conduit had Chambers of Xeric plugins, but the kind I was using at the time, Rune Loader, didn't. So when I would play the game normally, I would use Rune Loader, but when I had to raid, I would switch to Conduit, and I can't imagine if that became the norm, because that shit is so annoying. So yeah, I'm not really a big fan of that. The second one is the fact that RuneScape is really, really prone to scamming. You've heard about how many people get scammed by like downloading the wrong RuneLite version and stuff like that. I'm not into increasing the risk of that because for every new client that you add with newer, better overlays or newer, better like plugins and stuff like that, you increase the risk of people being hacked a lot more. And I don't think people should be forced to put their account at risk in order to play on a level playing field. Like say a boss is being designed for people using third-party plugins, well, people are gonna have to put their accounts at risk using shady clients if they want to be able to compete at the same level, and I really don't think that's fair. So that's why personally I don't like those ideas. Furthermore, just a major difference between RuneScape and WoW in terms of complexity, because in RuneScape you have a very limited amount of actions you can do because of the whole tick system. In WoW, even with all the mechanics being like blared out in front of you, it's still hard, you still gotta like keep aggro, like avoid stuff, kite properly, target your teammates to heal or target something to tank or aggro. It's hard to explain, but you know what I'm talking about. Like it's hard to keep up DPS even with plugins telling you everything. But in RuneScape, because you're like so limited in your actions, you can only do something every 0.6 ticks, and maybe you can do multiple actions per tick, but still like not that hard in terms of APM and actions. It's very simple to achieve tick perfect gameplay in RuneScape. So a lot of the boss mechanics are stuff where you need to keep track of stuff. Like you need to keep track of how many ticks are passed by before you can like ticky to the Verzik ball. You have to keep track of the amount of attacks the crystalline Hunlef does, and then the amount of attacks that you're doing to it. Just stuff that's like not really mechanically difficult, but like stuff that you need to keep track of and have in the back of your mind and constantly be like thinking about in order to make decisions and be prepared for. And if all the difficulty is in that kind of stuff and plugins do that for you, then what's the point of having any boss mechanics? I don't know of any boss mechanic that isn't just keeping track of ticks. Well, I've made it sound really simplified there, but that's basically what it boils down to, right? If the boss mechanics always happen on certain ticks, and the boss and the third-party clients tell you exactly when to like do certain stuff, then like what's the point of having any boss mechanics at all if you're just gonna circumvent them with third-party clients anyways, So I understand where they're coming from if they did play WoW, because it makes sense in WoW, but RuneScape is just a different game, so I don't think that could ever work in this game without trivializing everything. Like if you use a third-party client and it tells you like when to tick eat for Soditseg, when to tick eat for the Verzik Lightning, you could solo TOB so easily. Like it's crazy how game-changing these plugins are, and I don't ever think that could ever be the default unless Jagex comes up with some like amazing new mechanic for bosses that plugins can't be used to help you on. But I'm having a hard time imagining it because there isn't a boss like that. So anyways, I'm sorry for going off on that tangent. The main summary I wanted to make is that everyone's acting like this is the end of the world for third-party clients. It's not. They need to read context from this post because Adam has discussed it with the mods, and these are the only changes that we had to make. So if you use RuneLite now, everything is safe. Basically nothing changes unless you do Cerberus or use reorder prayers. But it's not that big of a deal. Life will move on. And I think this actually does open up an avenue for the mods to make actual changes to the game that people want to be made. Because like when AHK got banned, for example, people they made changes to dropping items, to shift drop items, because they felt that was necessary now that AHK was gone. Stuff like bank alt, all that happened was because all that happened. I don't know how to word this, but like that all of that happened because AHK got banned, and we can expect a lot better quality of life updates now that people can't use third party clients, because like why would we work on stuff that people have access to anyways? But now that people don't have access to it, I'd expect to see a lot more quality of life updates coming into old school RuneScape that would benefit the players more in the long run. So keep your head high. This isn't the end of the world. We'll manage. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.